Welcome to Before Floor, the pregame edition of Five on the Floor, brought to you by the Five Reasons Sports Network. I'm your host, Jonathan, aka Three Piece Combo. I'm joined by one of the smartest guys on the network, Mr. Marco_Romo. And make sure you guys always like the video, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Make sure you guys support the channel. As well as if you're young with a family, you want to make sure your assets are protected, go to markbrownpa.com. That's marcbrown.com. He's going to make sure that all your assets are taken care of. If something happens to you, or give him a call, 954-866-8513. He's the guy you want to make sure takes care of all your assets. He'll give you a free consultation, and he's based out of South Florida. So support your Heat fans and make sure you take care of all of everybody. So, like I said, go to markbrownpa.com or give him a call, 954-866-8513. Also, go to prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. It's the best place to play daily fantasy. You don't have to worry about your players getting hurt. You don't have to worry about drafting anybody. You just pick some players, pick over or under on points, rebounds, assists, or some combined statistics they have available for you. And if you hit on all of them, you make some money. And there's also flex play, which is great because if you even get one of them wrong, you still, get your money. You get 25% of your money extra. So that's a 25% increase on your money. Get that money, right? So use that prize picks, use that promo code 5. We'll match your initial deposit up to $100. Marco, we have a really important game with the Heat kind of sitting in a position we might have not expected them to be in. But they're the 6th seed right now, and they're playing the Brooklyn Nets tonight. It's a game that's heavy implications when it comes to seeding. To make sure that we not only lock up the 6th seed, but have the opportunity with the Knicks coming next week to get that 5 seed potentially, and have a better matchup going into that first round. So I think there's some opportunity there with this Miami Heat team. Obviously, we're seeing Jimmy Butler turn it up and do Jimmy Butler things. But let's talk about the importance of tonight's game. What do you see as far as the significance of tonight's game? And is it maybe one of those games, or maybe after tonight and the next game, if we can get the 5 seed, does that turn the season around as far as maybe just the regular season?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy where the Heat are position wise, considering this is probably the worst season they've had in a while, and that they could end up still being higher than the Knicks' best season in like 10 years. That's something I've seen on Twitter, and I've constantly been laughing about that. If that happens, Miami they control their destiny. If they win out, they pretty much have the 5 seed. Who knows if they win out? I think they need to go at least 6-2 to kind of have a fighting chance over these last 8 games. The one disadvantage they have is that they have the least amount of games left out of all the teams in this 5 through 8 spot. But other than that, I think they do control everything in front of them. For the division, I think their magic number is down to 4 now. 4 more wins gets them that division championship, and doesn't give 5 Reasons Sports away to Brady and Alex like Ethan had tweeted earlier, if y'all remember that. But yeah, I think they are ready, and I think they're locked in, probably the most they've been all year. Considering their offense has jumped through the roof post All-Star break. And Jimmy's just been on an absolute tear. He tweeted that that video about him not caring about playing an All-Star game is I found that hilarious. But if you look at his numbers, I mean, I'm not going to argue with that. But yeah, I think Miami just kind of has to keep rolling the way they are and don't fall into this kind of lull that they did early in the year, where they're so complacent with who they are and who they think they are. As Jimmy always says, we think we're a better team than what we are. But I think now that they know the kind of team they are, they know that they're in a dogfight for, seeding. So they know where they're at. Bam said it post game and a couple games ago. He says, we know every game now is a playoff game. And it kind of feels like that now. And that's probably the most fun we're going to have as Heat fans is these last stretch of the season before the playoffs. Because I think the playoffs might be a different story. But for now, I think Heat fans just kind of have to enjoy the ride that is right now, because we haven't gotten to enjoy much of the year as is.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. I think this season has been one of the more difficult seasons. It reminds me of the 2014 season after going back to back, when you had that, everybody just kind of coming down off of that, right? Where you had, obviously we didn't win a championship this time, but we had, finals appearance, conference championship appearance, one shot away from the finals, right? So we had some deep playoff runs, and kind of this team, like you said, just doesn't have that same energy for at least most part of the season. But to find ourselves in this position to be able to not only get the 6 seed and avoid the play-in, but get the 5 seed. And like you said, and I didn't even realize this, or, just put 2 and 2 together, of the Knicks' best season being not even as good as the Heat's, like you said, maybe worst season in the last 5 years. So that's always comedic when the Knicks suck worse than Miami, which they always do anyways. I mean, when was the last time they won? I was still not even born yet. So I don't think Marco was born yet. So let's get into tonight's game, obviously against Brooklyn. We're a half game ahead of them. After trading away their stars, they're kind of in a middle area. I'm curious to see how their rebuild goes. I really don't know what direction they take or kind of where they go, because it's not like they have many draft picks as well. So they got a couple of good young guys. Obviously, last time we got torched by Cam for 40 something points. I think it was 43. So don't want that to happen.
Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges, yes, correct. Sorry. And man, so we don't want that to happen again. So obviously, Mikal, after those couple of games where he had that high scoring output, they played him less, which was, I'm not sure why they started doing that, but they started playing him less.
Tank.
And yeah, and so obviously outside of him, I just want to talk about maybe what threats you see coming out of Brooklyn tonight.
And it's so funny because now they're pretty much the Orlando Magic in terms of just having a bunch of guys that are good, but not in terms of great yet. They're all really young. It's weird. They're a little bit better than the Magic, obviously, because they have more vets out there, but they're not playing their vets as much as they were before the trade. And I think they know that they're kind of just in a growing position now. They're not trying to win too much. They're just trying to get guys as many, offensive reps, or Mikal Bridges has gotten a lot of on-ball reps. He's not getting as many minutes recently, but I think that's just due to the fact that they're like, we're just trying to play everybody right now, and I don't blame them. And post trade, they've been in a bunch of clutch games, so I mean tonight might not be any different with them playing the Heat. But yeah, I think they're going to be in another scrappy close one tonight, because that's just the type of team they kind of morphed into being. We have a bunch of wings. We're just going to dogfight it out, and offense might get ugly. It might get good from outside, which has been kind of their MO. They've been like, we're going to shoot a lot of threes. We don't know if we're going to make some. It's not really pretty offense. Spencer Dinwiddie pounds the hell out of that ball whenever he's out there, but that's why they have him coming off the bench. So I'm really interested to see how Miami kind of defends Mikal tonight. I think they're just going to play him straight up. They're not going to be too worried about him going off again. I think, again, like the Julius Randle stuff, they're going to be like, we're not going to allow that stuff again, but we're also not going to overreact to it. So I think those are kind of the things that Miami has to watch out for. No Ben Simmons again. Not like he was a threat anyway, but they've just kind of gone down a bunch of guys that they were looking to play before the KD trade. And now they're just kind of like, we're just going to watch these guys grow, and who knows what the hell is going to happen, and maybe we get a good draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, with Ben Simmons, obviously they talked about, I think it was yesterday or today, that it came out about the nerve impingement in his back. So that's an interesting topic as far as he goes. I mean, talk about a guy that just did not pan out. You know what I mean? Like you thought, or I mean, at least me, I lived 15 minutes, 20 minutes from Montverde Academy, where he played high school, with D'Angelo Russell, Ben Simmons, all those guys. And all the talk was Ben Simmons potentially being the next LeBron. And yeah, that did not. Yeah. So don't do that comparison ever again, guys. But let's get to the prize picks for tonight. Obviously, just looking through the board real quick. We got Tyler Hero, we got Kevin Love, we got Bam Adebayo, and we got Jimmy Butler. Which one of those players do you want to take a look at?
I like the Kevin Love one, actually. Let me look at that.
So we got for Love 8.5 points, 6 rebounds, 1.5 assists. Also have a couple of 3-point made props as well. I'm not sure if you can see those.
I think the rebounding numbers kind of intrigue me because of I don't want to say the Nets are small, but they're also not a big team. And Kevin, the first few games he played, whenever we did face a small team, he had, I think, almost double-digit rebounds in a bunch of games. He had 8, and 10, I think, in the first few games after the buyout. So I think I'll probably take the over on that one, because I think he'll have a lot of smaller guys on him, and he's always good for a good outburst, and he hasn't really had one in a while. So I don't hate those numbers on the rebound. And I want to remind everybody we went 4 for 4 in the price picks last time, so watch out tonight. You might make some money.
Yeah, we did go 4 for 4. That was an excellent pick. Like that Knicks game, the calls on that were absolutely on the money. So I just want to take a look at some. Let's see. So let's take a look at the game log for Kevin Love. So for his over the last month, he's averaging 5.5. Over the last 4 games, he's gotten 4, 8, 3, 6. So the potential is there. He's also gotten double digits in 4 out of his last 6 games, which is pretty. That's good, especially going into the playoffs. You know what I mean? If you can get a couple double-digit Kevin Love games, that's always going to help. So first one, we're going to go over 6 rebounds. I like that one as well. Like you said, when we're going against smaller teams, he's definitely going to have a little bit more potential there. Jimmy Butler, free throws made. I mean, I think that's a lock at this point. Even though they have a bunch of wing defenders, Jimmy's gonna get those guys in foul trouble anyways. So we've seen with what he's just turned up now. Like this is just turn up Jimmy. Like this is playoff Jimmy. You know he's gonna get to the free throw line. You know he's gonna slow the game down, and you know he's also gonna get some steals. So I'm gonna do a little double here. I'm gonna go over on 1.5 in steals because I think with a young team like the Brooklyn Nets, and obviously like you said, Dinwiddie's pounding the hell out of the ball. They don't have a true point guard necessarily running that offense. Go ahead.
Is Mikal Bridges in the price picks?
Yes, we can go and look at him as well.
Okay, I think I might have the Julius Randle rule for him and go under.
Let's see. MIK. They have him at 23.5 points.
Ooh, damn, that's really done. I think I'm going to go under there. I feel like they're going to make it a point so they're not going to let him beat him again. But I don't think they're going to overreact. But I just think they're going to be like, yeah, we're not going to be like straight up giving him a red carpet to the lane like last time. So I'll go under on that one. I think it's going to be a Julius Randle part 2 where, he's not going to have a good time like last time.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, especially, the way Coach Spo likes to kind of make teams think. He likes to make teams really just move the ball around, have to make decisions. And when they have a guy go off, they want to make him, they'll throw quick doubles, right? Throw quick doubles just to get the ball out of his hands, have to make him make a quick decision. And when those guys are not used to those quick doubles, like they make bad decisions. And that's when you have the Jimmy Butler breakout steals. And that's when you have those fast break opportunities. So I like that call out there. I'm just going to look at, curious about Bridges' last couple of games. I'm going to look at his game log.
Julius's last game before Miami, I think he went off for like close to 50 or something like that.
Yeah. So Brooklyn's lost 6 in a row or 5 in a row. That's this point. That's terrible. But 32, 18, 23, 23, 34. So he's right on the line a couple of games, but those games that he did score higher against, obviously OKC, not really the best defensive team. Utah was one of those as well, or not Utah, sorry. Sacramento, okay defensive team, but don't really have the wings like that. You know what I mean? Slow-footed Sabonis, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I like that call out by Mikal Bridges. I don't think he has the same night as well. Make sure you guys use that promo code 5, and then also right here, use that flex play, my personal favorite, because if you get them all right, you'll 5 times your money. Even if you get one wrong, instead of getting your parlay busted, you get 25% of your money extra. So you're compounding your money. That's how you make money. That's how you invest. So use our promo code 5, match your initial deposit. So let's get to predictions. I'm going to make a quick one. I do think Miami gets it done tonight. I think this is just one of those games where we're down the stretch. We've seen, like I said, what Jimmy Butler is willing to do to kind of win these games. And I don't think we're seeing quite as much of the minutes without Bam and Jimmy also. Like earlier in the season, those minutes were killing us, absolutely killing us. So I think we're starting to see a little bit less and less of that as Coach Spo gets ready for the playoff rotations. How are you feeling about tonight?
Yeah, I love that point you made about the minutes because ever since, I guess the All-Star break, even a few weeks after, he was still doing that. And he was like, yeah, we can't keep doing this. And the fact that the rotation's kind of been changed by the Zeller injury is a good thing in terms of keeping Bam on the floor. He might get tired if he isn't back, though. So hopefully, Zeller comes back soon and gives Bam a breather. But for now, he's gonna, thrive in these matchups without, with guys. He's even better way defensively. Like in the last week or so, that week he had where he was like not great defensively. It was so weird to me. We're glad that's out of here. But I think Miami's gonna win tonight. I think they're gonna probably be another close game. I don't think it'll be as close as people think, like a 1-point game. I think it'll be just like a 5-point game throughout the course of the ebbs and flows of the game. But I don't think Miami's going to struggle too much because I think Brooklyn, I think they know that, they're in a rebuilding phase. They're not trying too hard for these playoffs. But I think Miami is like, yeah, we're trying hard for these playoffs because this is all we got right now. And that's a good thing for Miami that they're, finally locked in. So I think they're going to win tonight. And it feels weird being confident about that and not just talking myself into it. But I think Miami has, I think they have the mentality for it right now that they did a month ago that they didn't have.
And on top of that, they've also been shooting slightly better as well. Like that's something that can't be understated is we're not shooting in the low 30s, 20% every game. Like we're getting more closer to league average, right? So
2 days off between games. Miami, I think, is like crazy record under Eric Spoelstra when they have 2 days between games.
It's a really interesting point, but I mean, it makes sense because as a shooter, you need your legs to get that ball up there. I mean, a lot of people, that maybe don't play basketball don't realize like when your legs get tired, you just can't drive that ball as far forward, even though it's an arm, you're shooting with your arms. So the legs do give out real quick. So make sure, guys, as always, like the video if you think Miami's going to win. Make sure you guys subscribe. Use the promo code 5 on prizepicks.com. Give Mark Brown a call or go to his website, marcbrownpa.com. Make sure you guys follow Marco on Twitter. He gives great takes and he has a great personality. So he's always fun to watch out for. So appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll see you guys after the game.
Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle as well as Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, 5reasonsports.com. Spell that one out for the latest content without a paywall. And check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Just don't play Brandon Miller in a Sweet 16 game again, because I got burned by that today. But use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get that initial deposit matched up to $100. Again, you can find Prize Picks at the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or prizepicks.com. Voted the #1 fastest growing sports property in the country. Find out why. You can play all the different sports together. And of course, one of those is NBA. So check out Prize Picks on 5, which we put on our YouTube channel. We tell you how to play it. We make it easy for you. And again, if you use the code 5, F-I-V-E, you get that initial deposit matched up to $100. And now, tonight's episode.
Down the bitch gang. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor, late Friday night episode after the Miami Hurricanes advanced to the Elite Eight. Joining FAU, this is now a basketball town. 2 teams separated by a bright line ride are in the Elite Eight, which is remarkable. But we're going to talk about the Heat tonight. And we're going to talk specifically about Jimmy Butler as we await a big game Saturday night. I'll be there. Nets, Heat. The Heat are now a half game up on the Nets for that 6th seed. They're also within striking distance of the Knicks, who are going through a little bit of a tailspin right now. So Miami could get as high as the 5 spot. But all of this comes down to one thing as we look forward. You're trying to put Jimmy Butler in the best position to pull something off. And after the game the other night, Jimmy was talking to Dwayne Wade, and he said, I'm going to take this team to the promised land. He believes that. He believes that as long as he's got guys around him who can make a few shots, that he can do anything against anybody. And we saw that against LeBron James a couple of years ago, obviously, in the finals. And we also saw that last year against Jason Tatum and Boston, where he almost carried them to the finals again. So I'm going to pose a very difficult question to Alex and Greg. Today's floor plan, I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. Alex Toledo, you can follow him at Tropical Blanket. And it's this, because they're going to have to put their homer hats to the side a little bit and put Jimmy in perspective. So I looked at Jimmy since the All-Star break. He's shooting 61% from the floor. 61% from the floor. If you look at his East ranks since the All-Star break, he is 10th in points per game. He is 1st in field goal percentage among non-bigs. Okay, there's a few Daniel Gaffords and that kind of player ahead of him. But in terms of non-bigs, and in fact, he's actually right ahead of Giannis in field goal percentage since then. He's also averaging 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He's on pace for a ridiculously low number of turnovers and fouls. He simply does not make negative plays. There are no missed shots. There are no turnovers. There are no fouls. There's no wasted motion at all. He has been tremendous. But the East has other guys at the top that he's going to have to go through. So I'm going to give you this list, guys. The list includes Joel Embiid. It includes Jason Tatum. It includes Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those are just 3. It includes Donovan Mitchell. For bleeps and giggles, I'll throw Julius Randle in there. Is there anyone on the list in a series that all the teams had time to prepare for that you would still put ahead of Jimmy Butler, Greg?
My homer hat is off, and still, hell no. 7-game series, everything on the line. I understand, like, this is the beauty of this exercise, Ethan. It's perfect because everybody's going to immediately, the first moment as they hear this, as they hear me pick Jimmy instead of all those guys you just named, they're going to go, oh my gosh, here's Greg going again, being a hope trafficker. But we're talking about one playoff run. We're talking about a 6-week stretch, maybe 2 months at most. That's all we're talking about here. We're not talking about career. We're not talking about who we're building around. We're not talking about long-term futures. We're talking about in the imminent, near future. Who would you take? Listen, y'all. Jimmy Butler was taking shots from the mid-range, and he was not looking at the mother bleeping basket the other night. If he is in that kind of groove heading into these playoffs and the Heat are any semblance of healthy, I'm interested to see what happens. And as Jimmy Butler likes to say, I like our chances.
Alex, I'm going to make this harder for you because I'm not going to ask the same question to Greg, as I did to Greg. So I'm going to flip these questions around as we go forward. Dwayne Wade went into the playoffs many times on a roll. Okay, 08, 09, 09, 10, again, pre-Big Three, where obviously you had the help from LeBron and from Chris. And then after the Big Three era, I remember Dwayne went in really hot to the 2015-16 playoffs, which he carried over because he beat Charlotte pretty much by himself and then ended up taking Toronto to 7 games. Do you feel more kind of us against the world, this team can do anything regardless of who's around our star player, than you did when that player was Dwayne Wade?
Man, tough question as always. No, look, it's really tough to compare to Dwayne, man. I do. Like, that's where I think it becomes really tough because I never really want to play down what Jimmy has done in the playoffs, but it's really tough to compare to what Dwayne was doing at certain levels there. I think Dwayne's ability to just be able to kind of break down any defense, especially, back then with, I think, tighter spacing, I think was really unparalleled, along with the IQ, the decision-making, of course, defense, the leadership, all the stuff he provided. And we all know about, he was relentless. And that's where I think him and Jimmy have, things in common. Obviously, the fact that they both are guys who made their careers and are going to go down, as all-time greats, despite not really being shooters. So there's a lot of skill involved in that, right? I think just being able to get to the rim relentlessly, even though everybody knows it's what you're trying to do, they do it in different ways. And all that is to say, like, I don't like comparing them. I really don't. So it's a cop-out, but I think Dwayne is better. I'm going to say that. Like, Dwayne was a better player, so I'm going to take him. There's also the nostalgia added with him. But I trust Jimmy damn near as much. You know what I mean? Like, I think Jimmy as a decision maker, it's really, I think, not spoken about enough just because, and I, I've picked apart his passing at times too, not really in a bad way, just to say that he's kind of limited as far as, like, he can't make all the same passes that a Luka or LeBron or Jokic can, but he does not make bad ones. And he is one of the best decision makers in the league when it comes to, making passes for others, making the plays for himself, and not turning the ball over. And I think that's what really separates him from others, right? The fact that he's able to, take care of the ball, get to the foul line just as much as anybody, play elite level defense, get to the rim almost as much as anybody in the league. And just, the fact that you're able to count on that every single night when he's engaged, it's the fact that this is even a conversation tells you how far I think Jimmy has surpassed the expectations of what, who he was before he came to the Heat. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. I trust him damn near as much as Dwayne.
I'm not going to go back to Greg yet because now I'm going to pivot back to the question that I asked Greg. So I'll throw this at you, Alex. Joel Embiid is probably going to win the MVP. It's looking like that. He's up on all the MVP ladders at this stage over Jokic. Giannis could win the MVP. I think he's still the best player in the world, two-way player in the world.
Agree.
Obviously, Tatum's numbers are obscene, even though he's only shot 29% from three since the All-Star break. Most of his numbers, with the exception of the efficiency numbers, but the counting numbers are still better than Jimmy's. People are going to look at this and they're going to say what Greg said is crazy, right? I mean, Embiid, Giannis, Tatum, and even Mitchell, in terms of what he can provide and we've seen him do in a playoff series. Can you make the same argument that Greg can? I mean, provided, again, that Embiid stays healthy. Giannis has had some trouble staying healthy at key times as well, and Tatum can be inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely make the same argument. I love that Leif went to it. You know, he had to go to it. You know, I think, you know, I believe that Leif means that. And I'm kind of right there. The only person that I would legitimately put above him is Giannis in the East. And that's just because I think he's, you know, I think he's just the best player in the league when it comes down to when you're including playoffs as well. He's just such a force of nature. You know, what he's able to do on both ends, dominant. And he's the only guy that I would feel comfortable putting above Jimmy as a, you know, if you're doing a playoff list. But even then, like, we've seen Jimmy win out, right? And we've also seen Jimmy really struggle ever since they kind of put Giannis on him. I don't know, man. Like, I think it can kind of go either way between those two. But I'm with you guys
That's
that I would put him above. Even then, though, like, I trust Jimmy. I really do trust Jimmy. Like, I think the guy is a killer, and I mean that in all the best possible ways. And I do think, like, I was just looking at the playoff numbers, comparing his to Tatum's last year. Both, you know, very good. And I think Tatum got some unfair hate, especially in the finals, just because I think he got so much, I think, so much more attention than people give him credit for, as far as like defensive attention. Like, I think he, you know, numbers are bound to go down, and that's kind of, you know, their offense can, if the threes are not falling, the Celtics offense can really fall off a cliff if Tatum is being contained. And I think people, you know, the Heat figured that out, the Warriors figured that out, and you know, I think the Bucks have to a certain extent too. They just, you know, they won without Middleton. They won with Middleton not being there last season. Otherwise, I think the Bucks would have been right there, and it would have been a Heat Bucks conference finals. And, you know, not to slander the Celtics or Tatum, which, you know, it's fair to do, but I just think that he turns over the ball so much more than Jimmy when faced with the attention, right? So it's fair to say that, like, they're both right there with each other. You can say Tatum's a better player overall. I don't really agree, but I don't think it's crazy. I do think, though, in the playoffs, Jimmy just last year turned over the ball like a quarter of the times that Tatum did. I just think that's such a huge factor if you're comparing two guys. And so I'm probably taking him over Tatum. I'm probably taking him over Mitchell, who's also been a great playoff performer. I want to see him do it against the Eastern Conference defenses now. And I'm probably taking him over Embiid, because I've seen the way that Embiid can shrink when he's faced with the extra pressure as well. And Jimmy just rises up above in a way that I've seen others do in the past, like Dwayne and, you know, Giannis too.
So, and let me just clarify. I understand why other people would take other players on that list. I'm not crazy nor stupid. Like, I get it. Like, there's lots of guys that are super talented, having unbelievable seasons, that are much more in the prime height of their powers than maybe Jimmy is in certain athletic respects and such. I just mean this. I haven't seen Joel Embiid do it, and I haven't seen Donovan Mitchell do it either. And I haven't necessarily seen any of those guys aside from Giannis. And I think he is the one player that, like, if we're just being completely like throw everything out the window, he is the number one guy. But for me, I'm just ending it with saying I like my chances with Jimmy Butler. And I think that that's like, to be even in the position to say you like your chances with your guy, that's where you want to be heading into the playoffs, considering this season has been not fun otherwise.
But see, that's the thing that would completely confuse those who are outside this market, who don't understand the way that Jimmy operates during a season, right? So this comment comes in from Jimmy, basically that the real season has begun, you know, at this point. And so I saw some people criticizing that on Twitter. that Jimmy has that attitude. That somebody actually said this is why people don't like the NBA during the regular season. And it's just because they don't understand Jimmy's approach. Look, I've had some difficulty accepting the approach with Jimmy this year. The minutes, for instance, like to me, you win 3 or 4 more games if Jimmy just plays 2 or 3 more minutes in some of these games. Okay. So I understand the frustration with Jimmy not being out there all the time. I think now we're seeing the payoff. So you can look at it that way and say, well, maybe the reason Jimmy's playing at this level now is because he's so fresh. But I don't think the people around the country sort of understand that the Jimmy Butler that you see in December and January is not the one that you're going to see from March to April and on. And I think that that's why it will sound ridiculous to anybody outside of this market that we would take Jimmy Butler over Joel Embiid, Jason Tatum, or even Donovan Mitchell. Now, I will tell you this. I can't take him over Giannis. I can't, because Giannis has proven it at the highest level, has won a championship, is a force of nature, and really has only one flaw, which is his free throw shooting. And they've overcome that enough that I feel like they could overcome it again. That obviously is not an issue with Jimmy. One of the reasons Jimmy has been so dynamic down the stretch of games is because he wants to get fouled, because he's not afraid of getting fouled. He's not afraid of going to the line, whereas Giannis at times is afraid of going to the line because he's not very good from the line. So that is one distinct advantage. Another advantage that Jimmy has over these guys, I talk about the efficiency with Tatum. It's a clear advantage that he has. But the advantage he has over Embiid is Embiid needs someone to get him the ball. Jimmy doesn't. Jimmy's going to set the tone there. Embiid can shrink in these situations. You mentioned that. And also, Embiid tends to get hurt in the playoffs. It's always something. And so that's another reason that, like you said, until I see Embiid do it, until I see a center, okay, there really hasn't been a – when's the last center? I mean, Jokic hasn't gotten his team past the conference finals in the West. I don't know necessarily he's going to do it again. We haven't seen a center lead his team very far. It's kind of like the running back position, honestly, in the NBA, and where it's not really the necessity. The necessity is the quarterback, which in the NBA is the point guard or the wing player, the wing scorer. So I can make the case for Jimmy over Embiid. I can make the case certainly for Jimmy over Harden in these situations. I can make the case for Jimmy over Jaylen Brown in these situations. I'm not even going to entertain the Julius Randle thing. And obviously the Nets, who are the other potential playoff team here, Mikal Bridges has been a really nice story. We would be having a different conversation if this was Kevin Durant. So I can make the case for all of them. I can't make the case for him over Giannis. But I can say this. The one advantage that I think Jimmy has now over all of these guys is nobody expects shit from this team. Like, he is playing, he's going to come into the playoffs. Like, let's say, Greg, they come in with a 5 seed, okay, which is the same seed, the exact same seed they had in the bubble. Okay, they went into the bubble trying to get the 4, and they lost the game, and they basically dropped the game to fall behind Indiana, not really caring that Indiana was the home team because it was in the bubble. They may end up with the exact same seed, and yet I believe, even though I believe this team is better than the bubble team in terms of, I mean, Bam's better, Tyler's better. Those are the 2 most important things, even though they don't have Dragic, a player at Dragic's level at the point guard position now. But they're going to come in with a 5 seed with nobody believing they're going to do a damn thing. Like, so Greg, true. I feel like that is the absolute perfect position for Jimmy. Like, Embiid comes in as the MVP. The expectation level on him is going to be enormous. Giannis always has that expectation level. Tatum has been anointed as the next one, and he plays in Boston, and they're freaking out in Boston by the fact that they've struggled a little bit over the last month. We know how they get in Boston. Jimmy is playing. Nobody expects anything from this Heat team this year at this point, even though they were the 1 seed last year.
Sounds familiar.
This is it's perfect for Jimmy.
It's perfect for all of them, truthfully, to find an identity all of a sudden. Like, it kind of lines up in that direction. And here's another part of it that helps is that initially, like, let's just say that they were to somehow find their way. If they landed 6 and it's Philly, Miami, there's high drama and they're getting good TV slots. And if somehow Boston falls to 3 and it's 3-6 with Miami, then they're getting good TV slots. If it's 4-5 and it's Cleveland, Miami, it's also going to be a little bit like you might end up on NBA TV here or there. And I also think that there's a tendency for those series to go a little bit under the radar. And so it's just even more where Jimmy will fly under the radar and then shock people once he gets on the big stage. So to me, it sets up perfectly. And then obviously the Knicks matchup, but I don't know how that would really actually be viable.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be about the other team they play. Like this will be, I mean, it'll be a spotlighted series if it's Boston, be a spotlighted series if it's Philly, not so much Cleveland, obviously. But I just think Jimmy's in the perfect position. Like it's just, I mean, he has this F the world attitude right now, which you saw against the Knicks. I mean, most of that was because Randall was chirping so much in the last game that Jimmy decided to chirp back. But he was chirping at everybody. He was chirping at the officials. He was chirping at Dwayne. He was chirping at a fan in the front row. Like that's how you want him right now. And it's crazy with Jimmy. I always said this about him. He's a contrarian. Alex and I know this from the press conferences we're at and all this. If you tell Jimmy he's the best player in the world, he'll tell you he's nobody. If
Just
you
like he
tell
said,
him
playoff Jimmy doesn't exist.
Right. Exactly. It's like it's all. If you tell him, if you criticize him anyway, he literally walked into the locker room. Chicago was in town. This was a couple months ago, and it was a Chicago media guy, not a newspaper guy, but a broadcaster up there who he knew. I know the guy also. He came in, he started to talk to Jimmy a little bit, and he asked Jimmy how he's doing. He says, "I'm just being the best player in the world." But like, if you told Jimmy he's the best player in the world, he'd tell you he was the 15th best player on his roster. It's just the way he is. Like he's just counterculture. He likes to go. I mean, who else is playing the crap he's playing in the locker room, in the NBA locker rooms? You know, he's different. Okay. He likes to go against, I'm sorry, but like it's terrible. He likes to, I mean, he will literally pick the worst song you possibly find on a playlist, and that's what's going to be on. He's going to blast it. It's just who he is. And this is his F the world thing. Like the fact that he decided to leave his hair like that for media day just so it would end up on all the networks like that the entire year. And then he got pissed off. He was talking in the locker room. He got pissed off because one of the networks didn't run it like that. Like that's who he is. And I feel like all of this has set up for him to basically say, look, he's running essentially with the third stringers in Minnesota again. And that's how he likes it, you know? And it's like what he said in Minnesota before the trade there, where he's like, you effing need me. That's his attitude right now, and that's the attitude that they need, and that's what makes him so dangerous. And I will say this, I don't think Joel Embiid has that attitude. I don't think Jason Tatum has that attitude. I don't think Giannis has that attitude, but he's the one that I don't think needs it because he's just so incredibly driven, and he's tasted the championship at this point and wants more of it. But I would take Jimmy over Embiid and Tatum for those reasons. All right, when we come back, we're just going to touch briefly on how this thing sets up for the Heat as they play the Nets, get into a couple keys for that game. Before we do, I want to mention a couple of sponsors here. First, our friend Eric Rubenstein. You can find him at ericrubenstein.com. If you're looking for a personal injury attorney, this is the guy to go to, or you can call 954-829-ERIC. That's 954-829-ERIC. Eric went to St. Thomas. He was magna cum laude. His law school down here. He does a great job. He will get you your money, whether it's a car accident, slip and fall, medical malpractice. Reach out to Eric. We always give you the Rubenstein injury report. As of now, nothing really on the list for the Heat other than Cody Zeller continuing to be out, but nothing new for the game coming up. Also, do want to tell you about a great fishing trip that's being offered. You got to check out this website. It's thetunacoast.com. Go to the Tuna, Tuna, coast.com, and it's in Panama City. And if you mention 5 Reasons, you're going to get 25% off this kind of once-in-a-lifetime excursion. Take you out to the Cerro Hoya National Park, and there you can dive, fish, hunt, hike in the waterfalls, surf, horseback riding. They've got everything there, completely disconnect from the world in one of the most pristine places you will ever find. So check it out. It's at www.tunacoast.com. If you mention 5 Reasons, you'll get 25% off this trip. Again, it's down there in Panama City or right close to Panama City, but you completely disconnect from everything down there. Also, they're selling properties down there. And if you're interested in any of that, you can reach out to Carolina at 954-200-2217. All right, guys, Knicks, Nets. That's what's in front here. Alex, the way it sets up, if they win this game against the Nets, they're in really good position. Mikal Bridges has been terrific. In fact, if you look at like the overall numbers across the board, one of the few guys in the East who has numbers close to Jimmy Butler since the All-Star break is Mikal Bridges. What else do you worry about on this team?
Well, that's the question, right? I think they have to figure out some stuff as far as how they balance out their two-way play. And I think that it kind of sums up a lot of the stuff we've talked about all season with, the whole season having come down to a lack of shooting and, kind of underwhelming rim pressure, I think an underwhelming offense in general, where the only thing they were kind of good at on the offensive floor is keep taking care of the ball, right? And I think it's just scoring in the mid-range, getting to the free throw line. That's about it. Everything else, they can't really hit threes. They don't get to the rim very often and don't convert at the rim very well. So they finally got over some of that as far as recently. Like if you just look at their March shooting, again, it's still holding up, right? Like 6 in 3-point percentage, 6 in offensive rating. The problem is they're 18th in net rating, and that's because of their defense. That in this month of March, if you just filter it to this month, it's 27th in defensive rating. Like it's crazy because they're still forcing a lot of turnovers this month. Like they're still very good at that, and that's kind of what they've been leaning into all season, as we know. And despite that, their half-court defense has just been that much worse. And I think like you have a certain trust, and you give them this Heat organization, the Heat players and personnel that they just have. You give them a benefit of the doubt that they're going to be able to fix all that based on an entire season and multiple seasons worth with some of these guys of knowing who they are defensively. I think they're going to be able to fix some of that stuff. But as Nikias of the Dunker Spot and our friend was saying on his latest podcast, is like, can you name a three game stretch this season where the Heat were, on point on both ends of the floor? And immediately, as soon as he asked that, I'm like, nope. As soon as he asked that question, I'm like, I don't even have to look that up. I already know that has not happened this season. And so that's where all the, I think, frustration lies in the inconsistency, where even with shots falling and things going the other way now, finally, it's like, oh, some of the some bad habits are being formed. I think it's just kind of the doldrums of a long season, a little bit. So, some lethargic patterns here or there, especially first quarters, first halves, I think. And like I said, I give them the benefit of the doubt, but they still kind of have to prove it. And I think, they're just holding off for the playoffs at this point. I don't think they're even worried about this type of stuff, but they really haven't shown that they're a great two-way team at any point this season.
Greg, the Knicks have come back to the pack a little bit, so it's reasonable to say that you could chase down the 5. I'm sure that we're going to have some more episodes about whether or not you should chase down the 5. I've heard some Heat fans who wanted the team to get as high up in the standings who are now pivoting the other direction and saying you'd rather take the path from the 6, which seems like nitpicking to me at this stage. I think you just want to get out of the play-in, get the best opponent you possibly can, right? But where do you think this ends up? You think they end up getting the 5?
I do. I think that they are in a spot where New York has looked weird. Julius Randle has looked, he lost his cool the other night in Orlando. They are 4-6 in their last 10. Brooklyn is 4-6 in their last 10, whereas Miami's 7-3. Cleveland's 8-2. So watch that as they create separation there at the 4 spot. To me, this is a prime spot for them, as Jimmy has looked as good as he has, for them to catapult themselves into 5, which to me, if you talk about the one thing that would make this group maybe band together and connect this thing just enough to make some noise, it's going from everyone thinking they could be, fighting for an 8 seed to all of a sudden being locked into a 5 seed. I think that would be a huge win for the end of this season.
Yeah, and again, it would put them in a position where if Jimmy Butler is playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who've never really experienced the playoffs together in any significant way, this group had a play-in last year, I think you would feel okay about your chances even starting on the road. All right, thanks to Alex. Thanks to Greg. Again, I'll be at the game on Saturday night. Greg will be handling the podcast. Check us out on Playback. It's been a lot of fun lately. We'll have a crew on there as well. And check out our sponsors, Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. Eric Rubenstein, If you need a personal injury attorney, and check it out for a really, really cool fishing trip. 25% off if you mention 5 Reasons. Go to thetunacoast.com. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.